The Summer Games Minute, brought to you by Mass Mutual. It is one of the most coveted trophies in the world, but are gold medals really gold? Well, mostly, they're not. The gold medals given out these days are nearly entirely silver and are plated with pure gold to give them that iconic sheen. Silver medals are, of course, made with silver, and bronze medals are a combination of copper and other metals like tin or zinc. And while winning an Olympic medal is priceless, the value of the materials in the medal are not. In recent games, some of the materials used to make the medals have come from recycled cell phones. Mass Mutual celebrates women's sports history and understands the nuances in how women want and need to manage their finances. With quality product solutions and guidance, a Mass Mutual financial professional can help you plan for both short-term and long-term money goals. Learn more and get started at massmutual.com.
As you've probably heard by now, we've teamed up with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for our listeners each week. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code The Athletic, and you'll get a 1-year subscription to The Athletic, plus up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using bonus code The Athletic. Make your first deposit of at least $10. Place your first bet on any game and claim your voucher for a 1-year subscription to The Athletic. See BetMGM.com for terms. U.S. promotional offers not available in D.C., Mississippi, New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 in New York. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona. 1-800-327-5050 in Massachusetts. 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help in Michigan. 1-800-981-0023 in Puerto Rico. First bet offer for new customers only in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Don't forget, if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use bonus code The Athletic, and you'll get a 1-year subscription to The Athletic, plus up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold! Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
The Athletic.
Formula E is on the hunt for a brand new world champion.
5 red lights are on. ABB FIA Formula E World Championship is go.
Fighting it out for on-track glory, 22 ambitious racing drivers. It's a title worth fighting for.
What a dramatic end to the race.
22 drivers, 16 tough races, one life-changing opportunity. Previously, Pascal Wehrlein led from the front, but his results in Diriyah were underwhelming. Jake Dennis grabbed his first win of the season.
Dennis takes the lead and takes the victory.
And Nick Cassidy moved himself to the top of the standings. For Mahindra, it's been a start to forget. But we're back on track, and it's all to play for in Sao Paulo.
You numpty. You're fired.
Well, as you can tell, it's a very special episode of the Race Formula E podcast. It's not The Apprentice, although that fabulous impression, which I'm sure you enjoyed, Sam, you could have been forgiven for thinking that Lord Sir Alan Sugar was on the show itself. But no, we will be looking back. Well, I'll be looking back because, Sam, you were in Qatar doing some work or something. I don't know why. I mean, but I watched Love Island in business suits, and I will give the full lowdown on the, how can I put it? Insanity that was the Formula E Apprentice show. But that won't be all that's on this. Don't fear, loyal listener. We'll also be previewing the Sao Paulo race 18 months after round 2 took place, or whatever it was.
Oh dear.
We'll be talking about crazy F1 bets. And Sam, actually, you've done some proper Formula E work and you've been to the NEOM McLaren factory. So we'll be hearing all about that too. But yeah, let's crack on and have a lovely show. So, Sam, yes, you missed out on... There are very few mainstream motorsport crossovers. Like, there used to occasionally be... what was the thing? Nationwide shows when they would go to Williams or something and they would look at some active suspension or things like that. But it's very rare that you see motorsport on mainstream media, especially television. So I thought it was a massive coup for Formula E to have a whole episode of The Apprentice based around it. Are you an Apprentice watcher, viewer, follower?
I have to confess I've never watched The Apprentice for no other reason than it was always clear to see from trailers and previews that it was so plainly full of absolute and honestly, anything that spawns a human aberration like Katie Hopkins should be avoided religiously. So, no, I'm not an Apprentice fan. I haven't watched the episode. I probably will at some stage. I saw a bit about it when I was over in Qatar. It seemed like a tremendous opportunity. Whether that was taken or not, you're going to fill us in a bit, V, to be on this. I heard that Jake Dennis and James Barkley were on it for a total of 2.4 seconds, which is a bit disappointing.
That sounds about right, yeah. They didn't say
they're the stars of the show, aren't they? The real show. But no, I've got no idea about The Apprentice, so this is very much your time to shine on a bit of a appraisal and review of this thing.
Yeah. So basically, they were given the opportunity to set up 2 new Formula E franchises, and in 48 hours, which included designing a livery of a car, making a promo video to promote said car, and bagging some sponsorship to run the car for the season.
All right.
And obviously it's all made for TV, so there's all sorts of drama and stuff. But in a nutshell, the winning team bagged 38.7 million quid's worth of sponsorship in 48 hours, despite not really knowing what they were doing, what Formula E is, or anything about motorsport. And while I know there has to be a little bit of leniency because it's all about TV, the notion that there's a room full of prospective sponsors and you just wander around and you pitch your team to it, and then they go, I'll give you 14 million for the side pod, and you go, no, I want 20, and they go, I'll shake your hand on 18, and that's the way deals work. It's frankly just insulting. I mean, I'd love to get a commercial person for me on here and go, why haven't you done 38.7 million quid's worth of business this morning? They're all just out there waiting for you to knock on their door. Come on.
Well, I'm WhatsApping Jim Wright as we speak.
Yeah, come on, Jim.
Pull your finger out, Jim. Boy, oh boy.
But what they failed to do at any point was actually do what could have been done, and they could have been tasked with making a marketing campaign for a new Formula One team. They could have created a fake team, or, given out James Barkley there, they could have done a campaign for Jaguar where they had to bring in all the elements of what's going on in terms of the sustainable messaging, the Jaguar's electric car program and all of that, and come up with a clear marketing campaign for it, and they can just pick the winner. They don't have to have a numeric decision at the end of it. They can just say, we like that one more than that one, and then somebody can get fired for putting a picture of a tree on a car or whatever it was. I mean, one of them literally looked like an old Force India had been eaten by a cow and then regurgitated. It was just absolutely horrible. And they put a big tree on it. We're telling people that it was 10 million quid to have their logo inside a tree. I mean, what if your brand doesn't have a tree in it? And actually somebody said it looked like a fart emoji, and it's like, fair enough, it did, yeah. Not enough fat emojis in motorsport. So anyway, the whole thing I think was an enormous missed opportunity, because they could, if they'd done it properly, they could have actually got people thinking about what the messaging is of Formula E and how that's actually done. And by having people who are forced into making quick decisions, sometimes there's a nugget of genius that comes out of that. Whereas one of the particular, sorry Johnny, you're gonna have to get the bleep right. One of those. They'd shown a picture of what they said was the ocean, but was actually a lake. And he went, oceans. There's all types of oceans. It's not just the ones that are out in the sea. And I might be slightly misquoting him now, but that's effectively what went on. I mean, unbelievable. So yeah, a massive missed opportunity there I guess, and we'll roll on to the next one, in a string of not necessarily own goals, but just screeching PR pointlessness, following on the back of Jeff Dodd's outrageous, I would say utterly misguided bet. So before I get on my high horse about that as well, because I'm conscious that you've barely spoken, why don't you tell our lovely listeners about what Jeff has done?
Yeah, well, this alludes to a pre-recorded chat that Jeff had with Jermaine Jenis, who is the anchor for the coverage on the British broadcaster TNT this year. And within that conversation, there was the topic of Formula One came up, and this is another episode really that Jeff has gone on to. He mentioned it in the summer that Formula One was a bit dull, and that Formula E had much more diversity in its winners and much more jeopardy, which is true. And he's a promoter, part of the promotion team, and it's their job to promote. I think what happened here was there was a bit of a clumsy, clearly orchestrated, clearly pre-thought out message that Jeff would give a substantial amount of money. I think it was 250,000 euros to a charity of any given driver that wasn't Max Verstappen, who didn't, who was able to beat Verstappen in the championship this season, alluding to the fact that Verstappen is the overwhelming favourite again to dominate Formula One. And I think I can see kind of what Jeff was trying to do there, but it was just a bit stilted in my opinion.
It's playground nonsense, right? I
think
maybe we're all supposed to enjoy the bants and whatever these days, but if you want to give 250 grand to charity, very laudable, do it. Don't hang it on somebody else's championship that you have no domain over.
Yeah.
Right? And while it might be ultimately predictable that Verstappen will win it, more people will tune in to watch one single Formula One race and will watch the whole of the Formula E season. I'd love it if that was the case, because this podcast would have 100 times more listeners. But the reality that just isn't the case. And you don't. If you have to big yourself up by bringing other people down, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, I pretty much agree on that. I think there's two things there. The first thing is we've had this yawning 7-week gap. So
because it's so well run, isn't it? Yeah, you got a really set calendar.
So Formula E has to make some noise, and fair play to Jeff. He's been consistent on wanting to do that, and he has done that. I just don't think some of the things that have been planned out here have had a proper think through. And look, if you're going to do that, why not go to Bahrain testing, which was when this was put out, and be there in the paddock and say it, which will actually make a ripple within the paddock. I mean, as far as I know, there was not...
Would anyone in the paddock know who he was?
Well, there was nothing... In terms of what they did, there was no ripple at all. There was no blip on the Formula One radar that this had existed, really, that this was a thing. As far as I know, I've spoken to Formula One journalists and some people who were there in the paddock, and the first they knew about it was when I told them, and they had a wry smile and a little chuckle over it. I mean, I think Formula E are portraying it as a bit of a lark, bit of fun. But actually, I just think it's a little bit cheap. It's a little bit.
But if you're going to have a bit of a lark and a fun, why threaten 250 grand to a possibly a brilliant cause that needs that money? That's just incredibly disrespectful. I mean, the whole thing is so spectacularly poorly thought through.
It's a PR stunt that I don't think was thought through properly. And look, at the end of the day, it got a few people talking about Formula E. It got some press for them, but I think...
if only they had a race they could watch, these poor, bored Formula One fans.
Yeah. I think there's one thing here as well, V2B, is this break has really... it's really got to you, hasn't it? I can see that this hasn't been a a time of relaxation and stability for you.
Well, look. I mean, the fact is, if you're gonna be throwing stones, right? If you're gonna be throwing stones, make sure that your house is in order, right? Don't be throwing stones around about Formula One being boring when you're in your 10th season and you can't even have a stable calendar. I'm fed up with trying to excuse all of this nonsense. 7-week gap. This is a time when nothing else was going on in the world of motorsport and they should be bossing it, and they can't put a solid calendar together. How can you build a fan base off of that? And then you're going around mocking Formula One with its hundreds of millions of genuine fans, not nonsense fans that you lie about in a bloody document that's just so patently nonsense. It's embarrassing, right?
Yeah.
Get a grip.
Yeah. I mean, it's a sizable rant for you to be. It's hard to actually argue against it. I did put it to Jeff that they do need a plan B, and they know they need plan Bs for races that do get cancelled. And there's an element of force majeure to these. We talked about it before. I mean, the political instability of cities, particularly Hyderabad, was very fraught, but there was no plan B. And then the knock-on of that is that they do have to make a noise, and if you're going to make a noise, do it properly and responsibly without this without this kind of petulant prodding at Formula One. I mean, there was another good example was the acceleration record. It wasn't described as a record, actually. It was a sort of a I can't remember the word that they used, but they patently didn't use record because no record exists within the parameters of single-seater championships officially. And they got a top Saudi Arabian woman to do it, to dovetailed it with the International Women's Day. And, I know exactly what they're doing, and it's a good thing. They should be showcasing what these cars can do from 0 to 60. It's incredible what an electric powertrain can do. But again, the headline.
I bet you a Model S Plaid is quicker. I bet there's probably a CarWow video on this.
Well, there's things like
the latest Rimac is quicker.
There's Rimacs and Koenigseggs.
It's so irrelevant.
Yeah, I think the point being here is that it's all fine. I mean, that is actually pretty good PR to do that, and it's showcasing what Formula E cars can do in a straight line. But then, they put another barb at Formula One in the headline, and I just don't think that's the right thing. You just concentrate on what you've got, because, as we know, the sporting aspect of Formula E and the potential for it is massive. So just concentrate on that. You don't need to have a jab at Formula One, because, those jabs don't land. They just, they just don't land on anything. They don't connect. And I don't see, apart from a few websites and a few sort of, a few peripheral media that swallow that kind of thing, I just don't see the point in doing it, because ultimately they don't come off particularly well, I don't think, in the whole industry.
No, well, I'm not ranting anymore about that. It is what it is, and hopefully, we have actually got a race coming up in Sao Paulo shortly, so we can talk about that, and we won't have to go into other diverting nonsense.
We love talking stats here at The Athletic. Here's one that's super simple to remember. Discover automatically doubles the cash back you've earned on your credit card at the end of your first year with Cash Back Match. That means with Discover, you could turn $150 cash back to $300. That's right. You could put it towards some memorabilia you've had your eye on, or treat yourself to a premium sports network. You earn, and Discover doubles. See terms at discover.com/credit card.
We'll get back to the pod in a moment, but first of all, let me tell you about Grammarly. Email, Google Docs, Slack, you write across multiple platforms and places during your workday, so delivering consistent, high-quality communication everywhere is key. Grammarly is an AI writing partner that helps you get work done faster with high-quality writing for better projects, proposals, presentations, and more. Best of all, Grammarly works where you work, so you can get more done no matter what tools you use. As a journalist and podcast host, I'm constantly writing and rewriting copy and drawing up scripts. It's part of the job, and Grammarly helps make it faster. It's got some really cool features like tone suggestions to help you strike the right balance between direct and friendly in work emails. Plus, Grammarly has a ton of other great features like advanced spelling, grammar, punctuation, and conciseness suggestions to ensure your writing is professional, mistake-free, and clear. Get AI writing support that works where you work. Sign up and download for free at grammarly.com/podcast. That's GRAMMARLY.com/podcast. Easier said, done.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
Bring us up to speed on where we are in the championship, Sam, and looking at the form guide for Brazil, what do you think might happen?
Yeah, I mean, it's going back to Riyadh, which does seem a long time ago now. We've got a nice little championship brewing already. I think there's multiple plot lines that we can really get our teeth into at the moment. Nick Cassidy's got out the blocks really quickly. He has a 19-point lead over Pascal Wehrlein, who won the first race in Mexico. Jaguar have had a great start to the championship and lead the team's title pretty handsomely, actually. They've got a 31-point advantage over DS Penske, who've had a good points collation start themselves, and I'm expecting them to be hitting the headlines in Sao Paulo because Phil Charles will make his public debut. He'll walk through the turnstiles with a black and gold uniform instead of the usual black and white of Jaguar TCS Racing, and I think that'll catch a lot of eyes for that race and the season, the rest of the season. Sao Paulo will be the first true energy saving race. Last season we saw quite an extreme version of that. You remember Stoffel Van Dorn was on pole, led in the early stages precisely where he shouldn't be, and then the Jaguars came forth with their superior energy efficiency throughout the race. So probably more of the same, although I think Porsche will be stronger there than they were last season. And also, I've got a feeling about the Nissans. I think Nissan and NEOM McLaren have made a lot more strides in their software and their energy management, and I think they will be right on the coattails of the Jaguars and the DSs and the Porsches. So, yeah, it should be an epic fight. I think, honestly, I don't think qualifying will be that important. I think if you qualify in the top 10, 12, track position will be more important than last year there for sure. But if you can get in the top dozen and you can make some early progress, then you're going to be in a good position for a podium. So yeah, we're yet to see what the energy allocation is, usable energy allocation is. That'll be just prior to the race itself, probably Wednesday or Thursday. The FIA will set that. And then everyone will do their sums and we'll know how much of this sort of peloton style racing we'll see this weekend. So I think we'll see a lot of it, but whether it will be as extreme as last season, we'll just have to find out nearer the day.
It's a good circuit layout for this sort of thing, isn't it? It's tight enough but wide enough that you can bunch them up, but you still can overtake. So, like you say, we probably ought to get back to what we consider those sort of traditional Formula E style races now.
Yeah, I mean, it's the big topic this season. It's the balance of how it's managed, the number of laps and the usable energy. And then it's up to the teams and the drivers. I mean, I think we'll see a lot of slipstreaming. I think we'll see a lot of towing on that really long straight at the Sambadrome in the Anhembi district of Sao Paulo. So I think teams or the customer teams with the manufacturers will probably try and work together a little bit if they can. It's always pretty fraught doing that because you put yourself into all kinds of dangerous territory potentially. And I think, looking at the drivers in particular, it's a big race for several, particularly Mitch Evans and Antonio Felix da Costa for varying reasons. I think Mitch has had a lot of bad luck this season. He's not quite been in the right place at the right time, had some issues, particularly in Mexico with his steering. Mitch needs to get a strong result in Sao Paulo, and he won there last season, so he knows how to deliver. But with Cassidy getting that gap in the championship, I think if Mitch doesn't score bigger than Nick Cassidy this weekend, then it's going to start to become possibly a bit of a trend. And
do you think that this early in the season? Obviously at some point Jaguar are going to have to decide which one is the driver they're backing for the championship. Is it not a little bit too soon for that?
Yeah, it's way too soon for that. But I just meant in terms of the points. I mean, it depends on how many points Nick is ahead. What we do know about Mitch Evans is that he is very difficult to beat when he's got the right package and the rub of the green during a race. So I think it will start to become interesting sort of around Monaco or just after Monaco, when we've got that bunch of double headers at Berlin, Shanghai, Portland and London, because then it's going to be Jaguar are probably going to have to make some calls in and around that time, probably after that time. But yeah, way too early to have any team orchestration on points. I mean, lots can happen in the interim. Remember, Nick Cassidy had a reasonable lead going into Jakarta last season, and then got 2 points or something, didn't he, in Jakarta, and was right back in the mix again. So, yeah, Da Costa, we heard him, didn't we, in the last episode, how down he was. He's had this break to really recalibrate, understand what's going on. He's been busy in the sim. I think they've had a track test as well for him to try and understand how we can get on terms with Pascal Wehrlein, and that's going to be a big challenge for Antonio Felix da Costa. It is expected that he will come back really strongly, but the longer it goes on, the worse it gets for him. And certainly when we talk about team orders, if da Costa leaves Tokyo, say, with similar points to what he's got now. He's got 0 points at the minute, by the way. Pascal Wehrlein has 38.
Yeah.
You know, if it's 50 or 60 points after Tokyo, then Da Costa will just by definition be Wehrlein's wingman. I mean, he'll just have to be, and then it's a whole different scenario for him. And I don't think I've seen a driver that befuddled and that confused by what's happened in the first 3 races of a championship. It's a plight, but he's got the experience. He's not a new kid on the block.
He's got the talent for sure.
Absolutely, yeah. There's no question over those things. He just needs a run of races, not necessarily, up there pushing for victory and taking it to the Jaguars. Although that's obviously his intention, Porsche's intention. But for Da Costa, getting some solid points, getting a 4th, 5th, 6th, will feel like a victory after what he's been through in the first 3 races.
Interesting stuff. I think, looking forward to actually the talking being done on track where it should be done. What else is going on? Any other business?
Yeah, I mean, the big topic, there's 2 things really. The first big topic is looking a bit into the future for Berlin, where we've got this clash between the Spa World Endurance Championship race and the first race in Berlin on the Saturday. There are several drivers, as it stands, who are contractually obliged to do the Spa race. So
let's go through them. Who are the ones that are facing a bit of jeopardy here?
The guys who will not, as it stands, will not be racing on the Saturday in Berlin are Sebastian Buemi, Robin Freins, both of the Envision Parish. Big problem for Sylvain Philippe, who's very angry, rightly very angry about this clash. Yeah. Wiped both drivers off the face of his team. Then you have Nico Müller, who will have to race for Peugeot rather than Abt on that Saturday. Nick de Vries, who will race for Toyota alongside Sebastian Buemi in that squad, in the Toyota Gazoo racing squad. And I believe that is it. Mortara will do Berlin. Verne and Van Dorn will do Berlin, as will Norman Nato. So
this is all how their contracts are worded, right?
That's right.
Which one takes precedence?
That's only part of the story. The second part of the story is, by regulation, the Berlin races, the Saturday and Sunday races, are one event.
Oh.
And it means that, according to the regulation, as far as I understand it, and I have checked this with the FIA, that those drivers cannot come overnight, because it's only a 45-minute plane ride from Spa to Berlin. They, as it stands, cannot come overnight and race on the Sunday, because you are not allowed to change their driver unless it's force majeure.
Right.
So we could be in, unless this is amended, and the FIA do have the possibility to amend this and to allow the season...
Only they were administering both series.
Well, there is a commission, there is a commission that should try and avoid these clashes at all costs. And if you speak to Sylvain Philippe, and I'm sure if you spoke to Thomas Biermeier and probably Frederic Bertrand, which I haven't done, but I have spoken to Philippe about this. This commission has plainly not functioned, and that is another debate on how these clashes can try and be avoided. But it's happened, and I think
the irony when we've had a ridiculous empty gap, and then we're talking about a calendar clash.
Yeah, and it's something that really sticks in the craw of the drivers and the team principals. But they have to adapt, they have to amend. So we could be in this situation that if the FIA do not amend this, and they do have the flexibility to allow the seasoned drivers, let's say, to come back on the Saturday night and do the second race on the Sunday, we could be in this ridiculous situation whereby the drivers turn up and the replacement drivers that have raced on the Saturday all have a dodgy prawn on the Saturday night and are all ill. I mean, why wouldn't you?
Sam, you cynic.
Well, I mean, if Sebastian Buemi and Robin Freins, probably less so De Vries and Muller, are in the mix for the championship, which they could be with a Jaguar-powered Envision car at the end of the season, you wouldn't want to risk losing the championship by 6 or 8 points, would you? If you could have got those in the second race.
So who are Envision's reserves?
Well,
who's in line to go here?
So it's yet to be determined who their replacements will be. I did a piece this week on who they could be. So Jack Aitken drove for the team in the 2 tests last season. There is a clash with what he does in IMSA, so it looks unlikely that Jack Aitken will be available. There are very few drivers available. There is no Formula 2 and Formula 3 clashes that weekend. So if you're looking at a quality replacement with a bit of Formula E experience, you'd probably give Felipe Drugovich a call, wouldn't you? I would imagine that would be the first port of call. They do have a nominated reserve, which is Alice Powell. Now, I don't know if Alice Powell is in contention for this seat. By rights, she should be, because she's an official development test driver for Envision, knows the car a bit, has done some running in it, knows the sim well, knows the team well. Whether or not she's in contention is unknown at this stage. The other...
It's a massive ask, isn't it? Because they do so little testing to just jump in the car.
Yeah, it'd be a huge ask
for one event and do something.
For anyone, it'd be a huge ask. Yeah. I mean, logically, I think it makes all kinds of sense to look at the 2 reserve Jaguar drivers that they have, which is 2 drivers with some racing experience, Joel Eriksson and Tom Dillman. Yeah. And they've both done solid jobs at both Dragon and Venturi respectively over the years, and they have experience of
that makes much more sense.
The team. So I think that's the safe bet, but I wouldn't be surprised if Sylvain Philippe is giving Felipe Drugovich a call right now to see if his availability, if that's possible. The others, Mahindra have Kush Maini, a decent Formula 2
He's
driver.
doing very well in F2 at the minute. Yeah.
He is, yeah, and he will probably do the Berlin test anyway, so should be on site. They've also got Jordan King, who tests regularly for the team as well. Apt is interesting because Kelvin van der Linde drives for Lexus in GT3 in the WEC, so on the face of it isn't available, but I do understand he has some flexibility, so they could have van der Linde in. And they also have a guy called Tim... I'm going to struggle with his pronunciation here. Tim Tramnitz, I think his name is. He's a Red Bull Formula 3 driver, very young. And I think if he was drafted in, and I think he's going to do the test anyway on the Monday after Berlin, he could become the youngest ever Formula E driver at just 19 years of age. So we could have a good story there. So we'll just have to wait and see. But there's going to be lots of manoeuvring, lots of dashing around and trying to fix this big issue that the Formula E teams have.
Interesting stuff.
The one other thing, very quickly, I found out recently something that wasn't known in Diriyah was that Formula E tried some titanium skid plates on their cars in an attempt to give a bit of a showers of sparks fest.
Showers, the right word. Mate.
We're both children of the 80s, aren't we? We remember those spectacular showers of sparks going up Eau Rouge in the 80s. That's what has been tried at Diriyah. It didn't work. I didn't see one single spark. The reason for that is unknown. Presumably, it was it just wasn't executed
too high
properly.
They don't
possibly. I mean, they do resurface. They do resurface that track, don't they? And maybe it was just too smooth. but it didn't work. I don't think they're going to try it again in the short term. So yeah, bit of a disappointment that, but the sparky effects, which would have fitted in so nicely in a night race and been quite spectacular. Nice idea, but didn't quite come off.
Well, I think that wraps up our main chat, but you had the privilege of going around the NEOM McLaren factory with a tour with Ian James, I believe, and let's hear how that went.
Ian James, welcome to the Race Formula E podcast. It's great to be invited here to Bicester Heritage, have a look around your base. Tell us a little bit about how the base works, and just in terms of, you've got two, obviously, you've got one in Woking as well with McLaren at the MTC, and how those two sort of relate to each other, and how you sort of dovetail some of the facilities and capabilities that you have at both.
Yeah, well, Sam, firstly, a very warm welcome to the home of NEOM McLaren Electric Racing. Great to have you here finally at Bicester Heritage. As you say, this is one of two bases that we've got. Obviously, the McLaren Technology Centre down in Woking is very well known and well loved. And in fact, my career started there, so I was there when it was still being built. Well over 20 years ago now. But so that's a kind of a home away from home as well. But if I take a look back at the last 14 months, or 14 months ago, when we transitioned across to become NEOM McLaren Electric Racing, and we bought the Formula E team, and of course integrated the Extreme E team, we had some discussions at the time between Zach and myself as to whether it made sense to relocate everybody down to Woking, to the McLaren Technology Centre, or to look for somewhere close to where we'd previously been based in Brackley. And honestly speaking, the team that we had here, I think we could have looked at it in both directions, but I was very conscious that we'd moved a significant portion of the operational side of the team and the business over from Germany some 12 months prior to that. And I think with the disruption of moving again, it would have just been one of those things that would have been a little bit too disruptive. So Zach was very, very kind and let me go off and look for a location up here. And one of the things that I love about this place is it's not another business park. It's not another industrial estate. It's got a real soul to it, a real character. We're surrounded by like-minded people, whether they love the old cars and restoring those, or looking at sort of future technologies and fuels as well. Everything's here at Bicester Heritage, and it gives us a great environment and a great atmosphere. So we've sort of split our operation across the two bases. We've got our simulator still down at the McLaren Technology Centre. Some of the commercial and communications activities have run from there as well, but the main hub of our operation is here in Bicester.
Let's talk a little bit about culture and about the sort of ethos of teams. I mean, there's a great variety across the Formula E grid of how teams do operate. Obviously, the obvious differentiation being manufacturers and private teams, let's call them. You've been a manufacturer in your previous existence and then come into this privateer role working with Nissan. What have you noticed in terms of the way that the team works? Because from the outside, you can see similarities, but of course, just naturally, there has to be some differences on the way you approach racing.
I think culturally, nothing's really changed. I think that was one of the things that we've had really since the outset is a strong culture that we continue to develop and continue to build. It's like everything else within the organisation and the business. Even if you feel that you're in a strong position, you've got to continue to develop and improve. If you're standing still, there's that old adage that you're going backwards. And I think culture is such a key part of what it takes for us to be successful. We've got to continue to work on that and improve it. So the foundations are still very much the same. We have, obviously, as you've just mentioned, transitioned now from being a manufacturer to being a customer team. But I think that's less important than some of the cultural aspects of moving from the organisation that we were to becoming part of the McLaren racing family. And one of the things I love about where we're at the moment is that McLaren exists purely to go racing. We're not there to necessarily build a brand to sell things. We're there to race. And on one hand, it's a huge challenge because we need to stand on our own 2 feet as a business, as an operation. But on the other side, it gives a real clarity of focus. And that's something which I think everybody here is enjoying at the moment. As I say, that's probably the main way that the culture has developed and changed over the past 14 months or so.
Let's go back to the summer of 21. You had that sort of tumultuous few weeks in and around Berlin when Nick de Vries won the championship for Mercedes EQ. And it was around that time as well that it was confirmed that Mercedes wouldn't be continuing in Formula E with their programme. What was that like? I mean, that journey from that point on to continuing with an entity, although albeit with a different name and a different sort of philosophy all round. I mean, how close did it come to not happening? There must have been times when you thought this just isn't gonna continue. Were there times like that?
Well, I'm glad, firstly, that you reminded me what happened in the summer of 21. I think so much has happened since then. It's difficult sometimes to actually remember what happened at the time. But as you say, on one hand, we had that sort of euphoria of winning the first world championship with Nick and with the Mercedes EQ Formula E team. On the other hand, I was acutely aware of the discussions that were going on in the background, although we hadn't at that time openly discussed it with the team. The decision had yet to be made. But there was always that chance that we weren't going to continue in that current form. I think we were just very fortunate in the respect that the way I was able to position it to the Mercedes board at the time is that we'd built something up so special to be able to put us in contention for championships. We felt that we could go and defend that in the following year as well. That when you talk about sustainability, the least sustainable thing you can do is just let that go away, just turn it off overnight. So I think everybody felt that A, it would be a great shame and tragedy to do that, and B, therefore, they were very supportive of making sure that we could find a future. But at that time, we just didn't know what that future was going to be. And speaking very bluntly, in order to go racing, you need finances, you need money to be able to do that. And as mentioned before, coming across to McLaren, which wasn't immediately on the cards there, but with that particular solution, you need something that's going to stand on its own 2 feet, that's going to effectively be profitable. So to answer your question, was there ever a time where it came close to not happening? Not in a way that it was openly talked about, certainly within the team. I think that there was always faith that we were going to find a solution, and the team itself was solely focused on defending the World Championships, and we were able, I think, to protect the majority of team members from the distraction of what the future might hold. But very quickly we were able to, I think, put something together that made sense. And as we all know, NEOM were absolutely pivotal to that. So the support that we'd had from all of our partners, but NEOM in particular, over the initial years of the team was fantastic. And to be able to go to them to effectively pitch an idea that this could be something very special for them in terms of their status, their brand, and what their aspirations are as an organisation. That was something which I think resonated very well, and we were able then very quickly to build on. And then with McLaren as well, it was almost a perfect situation where you've got an organisation with such a rich racing heritage as well. So to use that cliche that the stars align, that they did align, and they aligned very quickly. And we were able to, through that, to make sure that, as I mentioned before, focus on the job at hand in terms of winning the next World Championships, but at the same time making sure that we had a secure future as well.
We're looking out over what we'd call the design office. Looks like a very smart, traditional sort of setup in terms of an old drawing office, but with obviously CAD and CATIA systems and all kinds of mind-bending software implements which are critical for Formula E. Ian, one of the things that you will do, obviously, is liaise very closely with Nissan, who are your powertrain suppliers and your lead technical partners for the Gen 3 era. How does that work? I mean, operationally, technically, do you have somebody who goes over to, I presume, Viri quite a lot of the time, or Do we see Nissan engineers here, or is it done remotely? I mean, how does that relationship work between the two?
I think firstly, you just mentioned the design office here. It's more than that. It's actually, we've got our finance, our purchasing, our commercial, our communications functions here alongside our engineers. And there are two elements to that. One is it just goes to show how compact this team is. And I think that's part of the beauty of Formula One and Formula E, should I say, and Extreme E, that actually they're set up in such a way that we can be compact, sustainable, both from a financial and also an environmental sense. And here we've got a great opportunity that each facet, each area of the business can really interact very well with each other and almost seamlessly. So I think the setup that we've got here works very well for that. What we don't have here is obviously the manufacturer side of the business, as you mentioned. That's run through Nissan. We've been collaborating with them now for last season, and now we're into our second season. But of course, the work predates the start of season 9 as well. And I've mentioned, and we've discussed it before, the importance of having an open relationship and being able to very much discuss topics and share information in both ways. I think that they saw us, the team that we have here, with the success that we've enjoyed in the past, as a strong partner, and knew that they would be able to leverage that experience in order to take the steps forward that we collectively would need to take. I think that we're still very much on that journey. Interestingly, I had what we call our steering committee meeting together with the counterparts on the Nissan team, but also at Alpine as well over in Viri only yesterday. And we were discussing that collaboration, and again, openly talking about whether it's something that needed to be changed. Do we need to actually reduce the amount of information that we're sharing? Do we need to increase it? Are we about right? And that tweaking of that, the way that we work together throughout is crucially important. So keeping that dialogue going, understanding, and we reiterated this yesterday, that when we go on the circuit, we're on the track, we're competitors. And naturally, of course, because you're running the same package from a hardware and ostensibly a software perspective each weekend that you go out and race, you're the closest competitors that you're going to have on the track. So that's your benchmark that you're looking to measure yourself against. So I think it's again so important to strike that right balance. I think we've definitely got that with Nissan. We're not, to your question, in a situation where we feel it's necessary to meet up in person too often between the races. I think that's something that we can do at the track. But obviously there are teams behind the scenes at the factories in Viri, here in Bicester, and they're in regular dialogue. And thank goodness through the pandemic, we all got used to using Zoom and Teams and WebEx and goodness knows what else to be able to facilitate that. And that's the way that we tend to work with them at the moment.
The staff here, I mean, a lot of them are very experienced, well known. Some of them have been with you from the Mercedes EQ era, of course. Some have come in. One of the most high profile, I guess, was Chris Diriyah, who came in about a year ago, just over. Just to tell us about his role, because he's got so much experience, so many successful campaigns in Formula One under his belt, and we're going to ask him later and get a perspective on what he found interesting about Formula E. But what is it that Chris has brought to the team in the last year, and what's he working on?
Well, I think first and foremost, adaptability and flexibility. I think that if I remember when we recruited Chris and the discussions that we were having, it was for a very different role to that which he's undertaken now. So we actually were bringing him in to really spearhead our simulation program and the simulator, to really take that to the next level. It's such a crucial part of what we do within Formula E. And then at the point that he came on board, suddenly we were going through this transition, and we had to sit down and have a very open and honest discussion with him about the fact that the future was going to look very different. We weren't going to be a manufacturer, at least for this next phase within Gen 3. So his role was going to change. And actually, through some other movements that we had within the team, the opportunity came for him to come into the role of technical director. And I mean, for me, he's instrumental to the success that we've had so far, but also to making sure that we've got a structure in place to really ramp that up and enjoy some more success in the future as well. You mentioned the experience and expertise that he brings with him. It's not as simple as taking somebody from F1, for argument's sake, and plugging them into a Formula E team or even an Extreme E team. So it was the electric focus that we've got here. The eccentricities of those series, the nuances that we've got are very different to that which you see in F1. But I think this is where somebody with Chris's experience is absolutely vital to the organisation, because he's been there, done that, and knows that he can't just sort of take the blueprint of which he's worked on in the past and try to force it through here. So I think he took the time to really understand the business, what we need to achieve, those eccentricities, as I mentioned, of Formula E, and then add his experience into that to really create something that was going to drive us forward in the future. And we've got a long way to go. You know, I think that he and I are acutely aware that we haven't met our own targets, certainly at the beginning of Gen 3. I think we can see some glimmers of hope now as we go into the second season. And then the expectation is that we take a significant step forward as we go into the second half of Gen 3. And the team that Chris has now put together and structured, and we're continuing to refine that as we go forward, is going to be absolutely key to that.
Now we're only 3 races into the season. We're about to go to Sao Paulo in Brazil, where you had a reasonably strong race last year. No, you didn't.
No, we didn't. I was just thinking, I don't remember that.
I was getting mixed up with Cape Town. Yeah, so Sao Paulo was a difficult one last year. But taking on board the first 3 races, particularly Riyadh, which was strong. You know, Sam Bird and Jake Hughes each had very, very competitive races, getting a 4th place apiece. That must have been a significant boost for the team heading forward into the next tranche of races.
We've flirted with podiums so far this season, which is good, but frustrating at the same time. We want to be up there. The big difference I've seen from last season is that we've come into this season really being able to race. So have the races always gone our way? No, not certainly not for both drivers anyway. But what's been great is that I've seen that we can be in the mix, and whereas last year we could qualify well, but then, you know, more often than not started to fall back during the race. This year we've not seen that, and that shows that we're getting a better understanding, a better grasp of Gen 3, how we can unlock the performance of the package that we've got today, understanding the limits that we've got, or limitations that we've got with that as well. Now, Sao Paulo is going to be another test of that, because what we've seen so far in Mexico and in Diriyah are circuits and races which are not particularly energy sensitive. So they've been reasonably flat out. We've not seen that peloton style of racing that we saw last year, where nobody really wants to lead at the beginning, and then you get to the inflection point and then you can let it go. I think we're going to see that in Sao Paulo for the first time this season. So it's going to be fascinating for us to see how we now cope with that, with our new understanding, I suppose, of Gen 3. The work we've been doing in the simulator up until now has looked promising, but until we actually get out there and see where we stand against the competition, it's impossible to say.
And how much positivity does the team take from Oliver Oland's pole position? Because 1 lap pace hasn't really been in question for the Nissan powertrain, and you know, Oliver did a fantastic lap in Diriyah to get that pole. I mean, does that weave itself into your own debrief after Diriyah and again give you a bit of positivity on the possibilities of adding to those 2 poles that Jake took last season?
Yeah, of course it does. I mean, first, Oliver is an excellent and very seasoned Formula E driver, and I think always a force to be reckoned with. Goes for Sasha as well. We saw some great performances from Sasha last season, and I think he'll bounce back this season as well. I think, as I said before, that your closest competitor in this particular format is always going to be your sister team, as it were. So with the same power unit, with the same software that you're running as well. So I think for us as a team, it gives us even more drive to want to get up on that podium, to want to secure those pole positions, and so on and so forth. There's no reason if Ollie can do it that Sam or Jake can't do it, and that's what we need to be aiming for. But at the same time, just to underline, we do it in a way that collaborates. I was really pleased actually to see again when they got that podium, when Ollie got that podium out in Diriyah. There were a number of us that were standing underneath the podium cheering him along. You know, that for us is a great result, because it gives us that momentum, that feeling that we can achieve that as well. So I'm really looking forward to getting back out there, getting out onto the track. It's been too long a gap, if I'm honest, since the last race. So I can't wait to get Sao Paulo underway.
And a final one, Ian, another seasoned and experienced driver is Sam Burgt, of course, who was drafted into the team to replace René Rast for this season. What have you learnt about Sam? Obviously, he brings so much in terms of his experience with several manufacturers and teams, many EPrix wins, and a championship contender in season 4 as well. What have you learnt about Sam so far? Only 3 races in, of course, there's a lot more to learn about him, but how have you appraised his performances so far?
You know, I've often waxed lyrical about the importance of character within this team, and that goes for every member of the team, including the drivers. As you know, of course you want the fastest drivers in your team, but I still feel that throughout our journey we're still very much developing, and I want the drivers to be part of that development. And what Sam has brought to the team is, again, that character, that openness, that willingness to put the effort in, the work, and to really, you know, get together with the engineers and push us forward and be demanding, but in a really constructive way. And I think we've already seen the fruits of that labour. I think that some of the understanding that Sam's brought, because of his experience, not only in Gen 3 at the beginning with Jaguar, but throughout his career, we've seen that as a real opportunity for us and as an advantage. And some of the steps forward that we've taken have been very much because of him. And he and Jake really work together in terms of bouncing ideas off each other. So in the same way that I want to get the 4 Nissan powered cars up to the front, and then we can argue about who's first, second, third and fourth, I want the same for our drivers as well. I want them to work together to get us forward, and what I've seen so far is very much reflective of that. So no, very happy with him. The only frustration that I've got is Sam's a keen golfer. Jake has now got the bug as well, and I think Zach is well known for being a golfer. So the 3 of them get out. I'm not a golfer, by the way. So the 3 of them pop out every so often, and the messages that I get back and the grief that I get from those sessions is unacceptable. But otherwise, it's the relationship's been very good.
Well, there are no bunkers in Sao Paulo as far as I know, so I'm sure it'll be easy sort of swinging for you guys in Brazil. So good luck in Brazil, Ian. Thank you for the invite. Thank you to Jud, who's invited us here today. I will pronounce his name correctly one day. I'm working on that.
You do a lot better than I do, and I think you'd agree with that. So,
thanks very much, Ian.
Pleasure to have you here. Thanks, Sam.
Always good to hear from Ian. Sam, what was it like? Because Formula E factories, they're not on Formula 1 scale, are they? So what was it like there?
It was lovely, really unique, just a nice place to have a team. It was a little bit of a, what would you call it? A bit of a sort of a paradox in a way, because you've got this quaint ex-World War II sort of
it's Bicester Village,
campus. Yeah, it's Bicester Heritage with near the village, and it's kind of quaint. There's a bit of Dad's Army feel to it. You know, there's all these sort of restoration companies and all these great old cars around. I really enjoyed it. It was, and actually where NEOM McLaren are based, it is indistinguishable really from a high-tech professional F1 team. Obviously not on the scale, but you know, it has they use the driver in the loop simulator, as Ian explained, from MTC, but they do have a remote ops room there. And Chris Dyer, do you remember Chris Dyer, ex Michael Schumacher, and Kimi Räikkönen engineer, very well decorated engineer in F1 with Ferrari and Renault, and started off with Arrows. I had a good chat with Chris, and he's got a senior technical role at NEOM McLaren. He showed me around how they use the remote facility in conjunction with the MTC. Nice design office. They've got really nice race bays there. It isn't on the size of some of the manufacturer teams, but it doesn't need to be. And they've got a really pleasant working environment there. It was just super chilled, very relaxed, just a convivial atmosphere around the whole building, and as Ian explained, it's just a really nice environment to work from. And it's kind of juxtaposition of a high-end racing team in this kind of it felt like a film set. And they've got their own little test track there, part of the airfield, where they can do
on the old airway.
Yeah, where they can do shakedowns. So they've got everything they need, and it's just a pleasant morning spent with McLaren. So thanks to them, it was nice. A pleasure to see how they operated. And Motorsport UK are based up there now. I went to see them. That's right. Last year, I guess, and there was one of those scrambles was on. It was really good fun. Yeah, they did that. I saw a Lancia Delta Integrale there, and a Morris, and it's like a little Avis there, and a Bristol. It was terrific. I felt like I was an extra in Heartbeat. So it was a very, very pleasant day.
Excellent stuff. Anything else you want to talk about before we sign off?
I think the only thing to say is to read the -race.com. After NEOM McLaren, I went down to see Jeff Dodds, and once Jeff gets over the mental anguish of your rant at the top of the show, V2B, I think...
I might have a difficult conversation when I go to Tokyo, but some things have to be said.
I'll leave you to that one. I'm just going to get on with my work. It was a really good conversation with Jeff, and there's going to be some good content on thoughts about the future of the championship, about new manufacturers coming in potentially in the future, a bit about your bet noir, or many people's bet noir, of having, trying to get more eyeballs on the championship, trying to use social media more to do that. And there's some really good rationalisation from Jeff on the sort of the fine line that they have to do with the commercial element and the getting more eyeballs on it. But I think, as passionate as we are about Formula E, we all want the same thing, don't we? We all want this to be exploited much, much more.
Absolutely.
And the sense is that the new administration, the new regime with Jeff at the helm is really pushing ahead to do that. And, they are getting some good results in some areas, but as we mentioned, there is some learning to do, I think, on some of the PR stunts, and just making it a bit more credible, and just forgetting the F1 thing. I mean, the acceleration's great, but the fact remains that places like Monaco, they're 20 seconds slower than Formula 1 and 5 seconds slower than Formula 2. So let's not talk about the speed. We've been there before. It's a cul-de-sac. They go to Monaco. They have fantastic races. They can overtake at Monaco.
Yeah, the racing is just better. Yeah, do things that are qualitatively better.
Let's concentrate on that, because there's a lot of good stuff about Formula E. It's not perfect. It's still growing. It's in its 10th season, but no one, including ex-members of the parish such as you, V2B, thought it would ever get this far. So, let's make sure it's got another 10 years ahead of it.
Yeah, amen to that. No, look, as we always say on this, it's in all of our interest for Formula E to succeed, and I think if you're passionate about it, then that comes through, right? And I am, and I desperately do want it to succeed, and I want to help it to do that, and I want them to help themselves. He says in a very condescending way. Right, well, thank you very much for that. As Sam says, check the-race.com for all the latest Formula E news. Please check out our other podcasts of Formula 1, Bring Back V10s, MotoGP. We love them all. We're not trying to face one off against another. If you don't like MotoGP, don't listen to it. It's your option. Anyway, there we go. See you soon. Bye-bye.
The Athletic.